hustling. I won't be defined by your dreams, committed to my goals, yeah. Gotta do my own thing, keep up the hustling.
Hi, welcome to Hustleburg. This podcast is all about small business in St. Petersburg, Florida. How the business owners got started, how they built their business, and how they serve our community. I'm Brett Bittner, and I'm the host of Hustleburg, and I started Beyond Your Side Hustle, a marketing firm where we help budding entrepreneurs go beyond their side hustles and ditch their 9-to-5s. As the founder of a small business here in St. Pete myself, I love meeting and talking with fellow small business owners. Lucky for you, I also like to record those conversations for you to listen to. If you find anything of value in this episode, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, because there are probably more nuggets in other episodes, both past and upcoming. It would also be great if you rate and review the episode to let us know what you got out of the conversation. If you have a question about marketing, building your brand, or operating your small business that you'd like to have answered on a Q&A episode, please visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast question to submit it. As we begin to close the books on 2020, what I'm sure many entrepreneurs and really anyone who's been experiencing it can say, we are definitely welcoming closing the book on 2020. I thought it would be appropriate to share some of the highlights from Q&A episodes throughout 2020 that I got the most feedback on and I felt added the most value in the conversations that ended up as a result. So in this episode, and in episode number 48 for sure, and possibly episode number 50, we are going to just take some of those highlights, and I'll make sure to let you know which episodes those came from so you can listen to them in their entirety. But I wanted to take a few clips here and there as we talked about some of the most important topics that we covered here on Hustleburg in 2020. We're going to start with the very beginning of every business, every mission. We need to be taking a look at answering the question of why. That's from episode number 2. It was our very first Q&A episode, and we are going to be hearing the importance of knowing your mission so that you are able to set things up to understand your purpose so that there is never a question about why you do what you do. I should probably start the first Q&A episode with my story, since I ask everyone in the interviews about theirs. So before starting Beyond Your Side Hustle, I worked in the nonprofit and political worlds. Basically, I asked for money without providing anything immediately tangible in return. Boy, that was tough. I think it's tougher than selling a product or a service, but once you figure out how to engage and connect with people who align with your way of seeing things or that value the same things that you do, it becomes easier selling an idea or a feeling. I learned to tell stories that align with my purpose and my passion, trying to connect with volunteers, supporters, and donors. After closing that chapter of my career, I went back to college to wrap up one of the least traditional collegiate paths I know of, finishing my business degree 20 years after I started it right out of high school. So why did I start Beyond Your Side Hustle? I realize now that no matter where I was in my career, I did things like an entrepreneur, even when I worked for someone else. I wanted autonomy and decision making, and I always felt like I needed to make or break mistakes. I'll talk about that more in a minute, to learn from them, rather than just accepting that the way something is currently done is the way that it should be done. Now, earlier I said something about breaking mistakes. And I meant that I would try something that differed from the standard practice in an effort to improve upon how things were done. I would, quote, break the mistake and usually find a better way to get something done and improve upon the, quote, way we do things, end quote. In today's world, a, quote, successful, end quote, entrepreneur is someone who has an idea and convinces enough people with deep pockets to give them money in exchange for part of the idea's success in the market. Often this means that they are really good talkers, but they can't actually get the thing off the ground and walk. They burn through the money that they raise in an attempt to be the next Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, but without the hustle necessary to actually bring their idea to life and succeed in the real world. They're instead doing it for the fancy cars, private jets, and the lifestyle of a founder. but I know what real entrepreneurs look like. They look like my godmother, who built multiple businesses and continues to work to this day in one of those at 80 years old. She didn't ask billionaire buddies to fund things, while she transformed an idea into a product or service and brought it to market. She built our family business, a mobile pet grooming business, and later a brick-and-mortar pet grooming salon, as the ultimate side hustler. She started taking appointments at night and on her days off from her day job. She built a clientele that remains loyal to her to this day. I can't imagine how successful she might have been had she been as good at marketing and building her business as she was at grooming dogs and cats. If she'd had the advantage of digital marketing, she probably wouldn't have been limited to the south side of Atlanta, and there would likely be a chain of yuppie puppy pet grooming shops across the country. People like her are passionate and knowledgeable about what they do, especially when they are doing it to ditch their careers to be in business for themselves. Unfortunately, for many of them, they aren't as good at branding themselves as they are at grooming dogs or cutting grass or creating music. They are why I started Beyond Your Side Hustle. I'm here to help them go beyond the side hustle to do something they love, that they're really good at, and living the life they want to live as a result. I can help them come up with a complete digital marketing plan and strategy for growing that business. So how does Hustleburg fit into this? Hustleburg is a way to encourage those budding entrepreneurs with stories of those who've made it, are making it, or just trying to get there. We all need to know that we aren't alone in what we're doing. In the process, I get to meet a ton of fellow business people in a city that's new for me. This is a great way for me to share what I know along with the experiences of others here in the same area. I truly want to help, and for those that can't quite afford to pay for it, this could be what gets them out of a job they hate and into the life they want. For the business owners I talk with, they get free exposure and engagement, connecting with an audience that is more likely to shop small, shop local, and stay within the community. What made St. Pete feel like the perfect place to build my business? One of the things I love about St. Pete is how it feels. I can't describe a vibe other than to say I like the way of life we have all adopted. We could go for the hustle and bustle of a bigger city, which I've already experienced and don't fault anybody for doing. But we choose to be more of a community, coming together in shared experiences and values. That's certainly a community I want to be a part of and add value to. Opportunity abounds for us all. Plus, it doesn't suck to live close to the beach. A question from our audience is, how can the solopreneur, which you'll probably hear more about in episode 5, with Robin Swanson of Red Hot Tiki, who is trying to keep up with their 9-to-5 while also starting their side hustle, keep from getting discouraged, with a follow-up of how I did it. So once you've decided that you're ready to ditch your 9-to-5 and embark on your entrepreneur journey, you need to keep giving 100% at work, but you need to limit it to only 100%. I know that sounds a little weird, but you can't give it the free space in your head outside the time you give at the office. That space outside the office is for you and your dreams. They've only paid for what you're doing there 9-to-5. Then you need to start thinking about why your side hustle is your passion. Why is this it? You'll notice in the interviews on this podcast that I start each of them with the why question, because I want to know what drives them. Even when I consult with a potential client, I ask repeatedly, and it's likely maddening in the moment because they probably feel like they are answering an inquisitive 5-year-old who only has one question in his toolbox. Why? In interviews and consultations, I have to know that you know why you're doing something. I have to know why you are motivated to do it. I have to know why this is it. And you also need to know what drives you and why you're passionate about it. Everything that you will do becomes about the mission of why. Why? And when I'm talking with someone, it usually takes the third or the fourth why to truly understand your meaning in doing this. And then when you can make that the focus of everything that you do, it makes all of your business decisions, it makes all of your conversations, it makes all of the things that you do regarding your side hustle and eventually your business about your why. And when you can serve your why, you're not going to be discouraged. You're never going to get burned out. And you will always be focused on the real reason why you're doing it. So that's how I did it. I started with asking why. I got rid of the 9 to 5 so that I could help other people do exactly the same. Content is most definitely king. And when it comes to content marketing, I can tell you there is absolutely no such thing as too much content. Hear a little bit about what I'm talking about for the next few minutes from episode number 8, where I talk about how it's possible that there is no such thing as too much content. How much content is too much content when you are looking at putting something out in the digital space? No one is running out of server space. So my very quick answer is there's no such thing as too much content. And if you take a look at beyondyoursidehustle.com/too much, you will actually see something that I've written on the subject about how there is no such thing as too much content. Your greatest fan is not going to be following you in absolutely every avenue, medium that you are putting out content. Not even your mom is going to get tired because they're not going to be able to follow all of the things that you're doing. They're not going to be reading the content that you're putting out in PDFs. They're not going to be reading the blog posts on your website. They're not going to be reading your Facebook posts. They're not going to be looking at all of your Instagram posts. They're not going to be reading what you're putting on LinkedIn, what you're writing for Medium. They're not going to be looking at the videos that you're putting out on YouTube. They're not going to be looking at TikTok. They're going to be looking at what is their preferred way of looking at what you do. And the other stuff is to help get your brand out to the people that would prefer to see your content that way. So you need to be thinking from a content strategy perspective of how many ways can I use this content? How many ways can I repurpose? If you take a look at the Hustleburg podcast, in addition to having the podcast, there is a video that goes up on YouTube that gives people the ability to passively listen while having a tab open in their browser, whether they have headphones in or they're just having something play in the background. It also gives me an opportunity to produce written content as I take transcripts of the Q&A episodes, where I'm able to put these into blog posts. Those also go out on Medium. And I have the opportunity to take a lot of these different things, and I have some ideas for how I'm going to take them going forward, where I can even go even further. So the idea is to take what you do, figure out how you can slice it, dice it, and multiply the ways that you're putting it out into the world, putting it out on the internet, so that the people can consume what it is that you're putting out there in the way that they prefer. Because I guarantee you there is no such thing as too much content. Not even your mom is going to be able to keep up with absolutely everything that you should be doing to brand yourself and to market what it is you bring to the world. We are all looking for a competitive advantage to showcase ourselves and to differentiate ourselves from our competition and from others who might be in our industry. One of the things that you can do is you can absolutely overwhelm people with an amazing free tool, and it's available to absolutely anybody. I'm going to spend the next 2 or so minutes talking about the importance of kindness in your business. What if I told you there's one thing that you can focus on in your business that will set you apart from everyone else in your industry, make you the talk of the town, and make your brand such that you get the best customers joining your community? What if I told you that it will engender a generous spirit among your team as well as your customers? What if I told you that it is free and it always will be? What do you suppose that could be? Well, no matter what business you're in, if you focus on kindness in every interaction, you will have an amazing advantage that can't be surpassed or undercut. While others race to the bottom, focusing on advantages that will inevitably be used by someone else to edge them out, you can take the single most useful way to add value to your community and make your brand known for it. We're not talking about making your business a target to be taken advantage of, Rather, that your first thought for everyone that's a part of your community, your team, your vendors, and your partners, as well as your customers, is to ask yourself, what is the kindest thing I can do for this person in this moment? When you focus on kindness, you add so much value in every interaction that the rest of your brand identity and reputation dovetail around it. And like we talked about, like attracts like. And you will be a magnet for others who are kind, bringing them into your community based on that commonality alone, deeply discounting price, location, convenience, and selection in favor of how you treat others. You're more attractive to do business with, and your relationships will reflect that. Most importantly, your community itself will build around it. The best part about kindness, it's free. Just don't let that price tag fool you. As we close out this best of Q&A episode, I wanted to let you guys in on what was probably the most well-received aspect of the podcast in 2020. Beyond all of the interviews, beyond all of the other Q&As, it was this, and it was about fixing your feed to serve you the content that you need to see to be able to actively engage with your community around your business. And we use this as part of a 3-week turnaround, or if we're starting anew, it is a 3-week series of things that you can do for ideal engagement. I can't say anything better than this is the way to fix social media for you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to make sure that you are absolutely missing out on all of the noise and getting only the things that you want going forward. It is fixing your feed. It also happens to be week 1 of our 3 weeks to ideal engagement. Now, when it comes to content creation, I've often been quoted as saying there is no such thing as too much content. In fact, I've written about it, I've been interviewed about it, and you can't convince me otherwise. I've even pointed out on the show that not even your mom will be able to keep up with everything that you post, and she's probably the one most invested in your success. If you'd like to read what I've written, head on over to beyondyoursidehustle.com/too-much, and you'll see about 500 words on why you can't create too much content for your community and why it's important to give so much. We aren't going to be creating content for the sake of creating content, however. Everything that you create needs to add value for your community, and it needs to be a part of your 5 focus areas of content. If this is unfamiliar to you, take a minute to visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/the5 or click the link in the podcast notes to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about there. Listeners to Hustleburg have heard about it over and over, going all the way back to episode number 4 of the podcast, and many, many times since. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how would you create hundreds of pieces of content across all your digital channels without a team of people doing all the work? This isn't as tough as it may seem. No one is expecting you to write 60 blog posts a day that are relevant to the 5, although 60 pieces of content a day is achievable. So what would that look like? Well, you have to remember that there are different types of content. Here's the good news. Each tweet you send, each link you share on Facebook, each photo you post to Instagram, and each video you share on TikTok is one piece of content. So if you were to share 10 tweets, 5 Facebook posts, 2 Instagram photos, and 3 TikTok videos, you've already created 20 pieces of content. And don't forget about Instagram and Facebook stories, as well as LinkedIn, both on your personal account and your company page. Now, as we will dive into later in the episode, many of these posts can actually be the same base piece of content, but presented with a different context. If you have a podcast, you can repurpose it by slicing and dicing audio clips, create memes of important quotes within the episode, use your show notes to create blog posts, and record not just audio but video to create for YouTube. You can also ask your community to create their own content around their vision and use for what you do. That takes a bunch of pressure off of you with just that simple task. Finally, look around. There are tons of aspects of your business and your life that you've never shared with the community you've created. While a lot of reality TV is scripted or completely staged, there's a reason that it's interesting to viewers. It's a look at life behind the scenes. Those peeks behind the curtain can be a powerful way to engage your community. Now, when you consider all that, that 60 pieces of content number seems less daunting with all of these possibilities, right? So we're going to go a little bit deeper into each of these later in the episode, but here's a quick guide for you to take a look to see how you can be creating more and better content for your community while minimizing additional effort. Reuse your content with context. Use content on multiple platforms, creating multiple posts, using the same words, images, videos, etc. The key thing to think about here is context, not simply cross-posting. You can also repurpose pillar content by having a long-form, evergreen piece of content that you can break down and repurpose into multiple pieces of content across all of your platforms. Generally, we're talking about pillar content like white papers, podcasts, instructional videos, or webinars. These can be very helpful here in being able to create other content from that singular pillar content. You can also ask for user-generated content. Engage your community and have them create content for you. Your many fans and followers are definitely willing to share their ideas, create content that you ask for, or even create content for your business without anything more than an ask. And you can document your life. Use your daily routine and the activities of your day to create content around your business. Treat your life like you're on a reality show and then share the results. Let's dig a little deeper, shall we? When it comes to reusing your content, you need to do so with appropriate context across all platforms. The reason behind your post and the value you bring to the community on that platform are what make up your context. Most of the time, your reason to post should be that you were brought something you know your community will value that falls within the 5 and isn't necessarily a call to action. If you're not sure how to have this kind of content delivered to you, you need to examine how you use social media as a content consumer. We spent all of episode 30 talking about ideal engagement, starting with how you fix your various feeds across all platforms to provide you with the type of content you will value and that will provide value for others by making the platform, its algorithm, and the content you're served work for you. You did it! You've just listened to Hustleburg. To thank you for listening, we're helping you reach ideal engagement on any social media platform in a 3-week training available at beyondyoursidehustle.com/3 weeks. See how you can change your feed to serve you, start engaging on social the right way, and create a community around you and your business. Speaking of businesses, if you're a small business owner in St. Pete and you'd like to be a guest on an episode of the podcast, let us know at beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast guest. If you got something of value from this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast player. This is something small that you can do to help us shine the spotlight on all the great businesses St. Pete has to offer. The music in this episode is Defining Your Dreams by my friend Rhymer Educator. On May 28th, he released a mixtape entitled Quentin Quarantino about loneliness during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I encourage you to check it out on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to great music. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to sharing with you how we do business in the Burg.